The Westminster Shorter Catechism defines God as a spirit, infinite, eternal, and unchangeable. By definition, attempting to grasp an infinite entity completely exceeds the processing capacity of a finite, limited human mind. To bridge this gap, any divine self-revelation requires accommodation, scaling down infinite reality into the narrow bandwidth of human language. When reading the text in English, we encounter homogenized titles. Words like God and the fully capitalized Lord are used repeatedly, blending distinct Hebrew terms into a single monolithic identifier. The original Hebrew text operates differently. It employs highly specific, distinct names to describe the divine. These names serve as propositional data. They are precise descriptions of God's ontology. We can map these descriptions across three structural categories: propositional names establishing facts, historical names commemorating specific encounters, and personal names defining individual experience. Categorizing these terms allows us to track the exact trajectory of the biblical covenant, moving from an incomprehensible creator to an intimate, relational partner. We begin with propositional names. These are foundational titles expressing unchangeable facts about divine nature. The matrix starts with Elohim. This general biblical term for deity is first encountered in Genesis 1 as the creator. In Hebrew grammar, the M suffix attached to El functions as a plural of majesty. It denotes infinite power and absolute transcendence above creation. Once transcendence is established, the text introduces authority through the title ADONAI. ADONAI translates directly to Lord or Master. This sets up a strict functional hierarchy. ADONAI positions the Creator as the supreme owner of everything, to whom all earthly nations are ultimately subject. The structural prerequisites of the covenant require one more element: SHADDAI. This title translates as God Almighty or the All-Sufficient One. In the patriarchal narratives, SHADDAI is deployed precisely when natural fulfillment appears impossible, such as Abraham and Sarah having a child in their advanced age. It acts as a linguistic guarantee of divine capability, infinite power in Elohim, absolute sovereignty in ADONAI, and total self-sufficiency in SHADDAI. Together, these three titles fulfilled the strict prerequisites required to initiate a binding covenant. With the transcendent framework established, the text shifts to the specific personal name of the covenant. This is the Tetragrammaton, spelled YHWH. Etymologically, this traces back to the burning bush encounter in Exodus 3, where the divine voice identifies itself with the verb I am. YHWH embeds a dual ontological claim. It signifies complete, self-sufficient independence, while simultaneously promising a permanent, unchanging relational presence. Historically, Jewish readers developed such extreme reverence for this specific text that they stopped pronouncing the name aloud. Instead, whenever they encountered YHWH in the scrolls, they substituted the spoken word ADONAI. Centuries later, translators combined the consonants of YHWH with the vowel points of ADONAI. The result was the typographic invention Jehovah. In modern English Bibles, YHWH is almost universally rendered as the fully capitalized word Lord. Obscuring the specific name YHWH behind the generic title Lord flattens the text. It takes the personal, active nature of the covenant maker and reduces it to a formal designation. From these foundational roots, we see the emergence of historical names. These are unique titles generated by human protagonists in direct response to specific divine interventions. This mechanism creates standard compound descriptors such as Jehovah-Shalom, Jehovah-Rapha, and Jehovah-Nissi. The most critical compound for understanding the covenant is found in Genesis 22, Jehovah-Jireh. The narrative stakes here are absolute. Abraham is commanded to offer his covenant heir, Isaac, as a burnt sacrifice. English translations typically render Jireh pragmatically as "the Lord will provide," but the literal Hebrew translation is grounded in verbs of sight. Literally, the phrase means "the Lord will see to it." Abraham moves toward the sacrifice with a conviction that the lineage remains under divine oversight. He believes the covenant persists because God is watching the promise. We see this same visual framing in Genesis 16 when Hagar flees into the desert. In her despair, she names the deity El Roi, the God who sees. These historical compound names operate as textual memorial stones. They prove that the transcendent Elohim does not remain distant, but actively sees to the granular physical details of human history to protect his promises. The final category encompasses metaphorical titles. These physical objects function as typological architecture, creating a blueprint across the biblical canon. Consider the title the ROCK, or Tsur. In the Psalm of Moses, it defines God as perfect and just, while in 2 Samuel, it describes the one who speaks through the prophets to rule over men righteously. In Exodus 17, when the Israelites demand water, the text contains a highly specific detail. God declares he will stand upon the rock at Horeb before Moses strikes it. Centuries later, the Apostle Paul provides an exegetical link to this exact moment in his first letter to the Corinthians. Paul asserts a theological claim regarding that event. The spiritual rock that followed them was Christ. This pattern recurs heavily in the prophets. By linking the rock to the one who saves and rules, the text identifies a pre-incarnate messianic figure. Linking the unyielding nature of a physical rock to divine salvation transforms an Old Testament object into a deliberate literary shadow. It prepares the framework for the New Testament incarnation. When we assemble these categories, the semantic matrix reveals a specific shape. The lexicon begins with the wide, incomprehensible scale of the transcendent creator, defined by Elohim and El Shaddai. The structure then narrows, focusing downward into the relational, self-existent covenant partner, defined by the name YHWH. Finally, the trajectory resolves at the narrowest point, a specific, historical, physical intervention in the form of the incarnate Christ. Reading the biblical text accurately requires piercing through the homogenization of English translations. Engaging with the precise propositional data of the Hebrew names reveals the ultimate blueprint of divine revelation.